All right, all right, all right. Welcome into Toilets to Titles. This is episode number 192. Tonight, me and my guy Justin Stevens, we're talking NFL, fantasy football, preseason storylines that we are either buying or selling at this point in the offseason. At this point in the offseason, we're basically knocking on the door for the NFL season. So these are like the end. This is the end of the offseason story. So it's time. Like we know the storylines and we know whether or not we're buying or selling it. You heard that giggle. That's my guy, Justin, at JustinFF_ on the Twitter. Justin, what's cooking?
What's cooking is I just got Jack Doyle in a draft, and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm pretty pumped. So it's one of the things we're going to be talking about today, or some of the things that we've been offering to our Patreons. So while we're in the draft right now. So it's a vampire style league. It's going to be 11 of our Patreons against me, and anybody that beats me in this league will get a free entry into the Frankenstank next season. So I got to battle back from an obvious last place. I can only draft 16 guys that are not playing football, and I can only work the waivers and try to come back and beat these guys. So it's gonna be fun and interesting, and I get to set my lineup after this draft is over. So after the show tonight, I'm gonna go through and pick up all the free agents that I can.
Man, and so Frankenstein's $25. So anybody who beats you, because next year, so this year at 96 teams, next year will probably go up above 130 teams. I would assume maybe even more, because this thing's been growing a lot quicker than I expected. And then your experience down in Canton and how people responded to the league down there makes me think I wouldn't be surprised if we go over 150. But in the Patreon thread, in the Title Tribe Gilded chat, you drop this in there. So anybody who beats you gets $25 essentially to get into the league, and you can't draft a team. You're going all free agents. That reminds me. So a few years ago, my cousin Jesse, basically my brother, right? We lived together for about like 7 or 8 years growing up. He moved in with my family. He's a lawyer. He was living down in Tennessee, and he was in a fantasy league. He's not into fantasy football like we're into fantasy football. And he missed the draft. When he missed the draft, they did an auto pick for him. They gave him nobody. So he's like, hey, it was a high money league. And he didn't really care. But so I took offense to it. And I was like, I am going to help you. That was the year that Patrick Mahomes took over for Alex Smith. Nobody drafted him. He was the first free agent I picked up. We won the league with only free agents. And that, I don't know if I can ever top that playing fantasy football the rest of my life.
Yeah, I've heard stories, but there are at least rules in a vampire that help me out. Like, it allows me to be top waiver priority every week, and if I do happen to beat somebody, I get to steal one of their players. So like, at least there's an advantage. That's rough. Like, here's what we do for my home league, and I thought we were bad. So you know how USA Today doesn't know anything about football, right? Or fantasy football rankings, especially. They don't exactly go to toiletstotitles.com to check out the newest rankings, the newest updated rankings that we just updated last night.
Yes.
So highly updated, and highly sought after. I've already had Patreon's compliments, so we're doing good over there. But anyway, we use USA Today, and then not only do we not take the top ADP, we go with the third from the top ADP on the list. And then you have to get your starting lineup first, which means, kickers and defenses get drafted before your bench players. So I thought we were rough, man. That's
yeah. I felt really good about winning that. And it was a big money league, and it was back when, I wasn't necessarily comfortable enough to be spending that money, and it wasn't my money. It was my cousin's, but he split it with me, which was awesome. But regardless, let's get back into some basic things. If you're watching at home or listening at home, if you're on Apple Podcasts, please throw us a 5-star review. Say something clever and funny, and we'll get you to Frankenstein free next year. If you're on YouTube, we appreciate it if you subscribe, like, comment. We got tons of content throughout the week. We're getting ready for the NFL season. We're going to have tons of content for you throughout the season. And we got tons of little clips. If you look in our shorts thread, we're taking highlights and plays from training camps across the NFL. We're taking clips. We're posting them on you so you can see your favorite players making plays. So make sure you check that out. And we are doing, for the first time ever, I know a lot of you remember every year we've done the playoff league, which has been a hit. A lot of fun. You can start a player one time throughout the playoffs, and it's like that's one of my favorite things to do. But it also makes me sad because I know the season's almost over. Shout out to my son Emmett, just turned 11. He came second
Yeah.
Man. And I felt so bad because I wanted, like, at one point, I wanted to make a little bit of advice and I didn't. But I'm sure, you know what, if I gave him more advice than that, he probably wouldn't have came in second. So shout out to him. But we're doing, for the first time ever, we're going to continue to do this after this season, the survivor pool. It's $30. You can reach out to us, toiletsandtitles@gmail.com. Payment is through League Safe. Once you pay in, we'll give you the League Safe link. Once you pay in, then I'll send you the Yahoo link so you could sign in. You pick one team a week. If your team wins, you keep going. You can't pick them again. But once you lose, you're out. And then the person who wins is going to get 90% of the pot. 10% of the pot is going to go to the Toilets Titles team, help us do cool stuff like get some lanyards like this that we've been sending out to all the members of the Title Tribe in the Gilded Chat. So shout out to all of you. You guys make running this thing worth it. So I know we're doing some cool stuff, but we also got some cool reviews. Justin, why don't you break down or at least read off one of the Apple Podcast reviews we got recently?
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about tonight, so I'm just going to read one of the quick short ones. This is from OD5656 on Apple with the 5-star review. And guys, this is all it takes to make us happy. His 5-star review said, awesome podcast with a lot of NFL and fantasy football information. So thank you very much, OD. We appreciate you.
Man, Odie, I think of the dog from Garfield when I read Odie. But Justin mentioned we did update our redraft rankings. Check that out, toiletstitles.com under the fantasy tab. We're in the process of updating our dynasty rankings, which we do about once a month. Redraft, we're doing a little bit more often because it's very important we get you as fresh, up-to-date rankings as possible with the drafts. I bumped Jonathan Taylor back from RB3 to RB5, which I still couldn't bump him out of my top 5, but I moved Nick Chubb ahead of him. I just feel safe that way. But go check those out. I know we're working on updating our Dynasty rookie rankings, all that good stuff, man. We got you covered. And if you want to get into the Gilded Chat, like I mentioned earlier, reach out to us on the Twitter or email us, toiletsandtitles@gmail.com. George is in here. He said, hey, fellas, George Reed, he runs the mock draft lavatory. So we run mock drafts throughout the week. We talk start sits. We talk trades. We talk, anything fantasy related. We got over 220 people in this chat. And we're nonstop talking throughout the day. We're filling leagues. We're doing all sorts of cool stuff. But one of the cool things we do is the mock draft lavatory with George, with Jason, with Rich. I know Joshua was on Monday. We do 3 mock drafts live at 9:30 p.m. Eastern every Monday night. And they break these mock drafts down on air while you're drafting, which is pretty cool. But Justin, what do we have going on with Rival?
So Rival, actually, I got a phone call today from Rival, and they have a brand new thing that they're going to be starting up next week. And this is awesome for the listeners. This is kind of a huge breaking thing because you were just talking about playing in a fantasy league where you didn't have to pay into it, but yet you won money at the end, right? It's a great segue because this is exactly what Rival's doing. So Rival Fantasy, and you see the link right here. Make sure you type that in, joinrival.com/title tribe. So here's how it works. Typically, you have to have an account set up with money. We don't have to do that for what is about to come down next week. For this one, you do not have to set up an account that has money in it. You just have to have the account set up. And then next week on August 30th, so mark the date on your calendar, August 30th, we are going to be able to fill leagues, like season-long leagues. This is new for Rival. They've never done season-long fantasy before, and they're doing it, and they've asked us to try to help fill some leagues for them. They are free leagues for our listeners, and you join these leagues, and you can win money. There's a $250 prize pool for every league that's filled. And in my side view here, reading about George's birthday suit, it's not making it very easy to go through all this. But so appreciate that, George. But anyway, so these are free leagues. You play for free. You sign up for free, but you can win money. All right. So we need to fill as many of these as we possibly can because we're trying to help Rival build something special there, which is also going to help us build something special. And if you use that link, joinrival.com/title tribe, they can track it. They know that you're with us. Then you win money from that. And then you go and drop a deposit in there and you're helping us out again. But you don't have to drop the deposit. That's the beautiful thing. For those of you that live in the no fun state like myself, where they don't allow you to gamble or bet, you don't have to drop money in to play in these free leagues. So I'm going to keep saying that and reiterating it because I'm excited this weekend. I've got a couple of home league drafts where I'm actually going to be able to get people that I'm friends with to sign up for Rival for the first time ever.
Yeah. Yeah, and Rich is in here. He's asking, can we do multiple leagues? So we can do everyone for Toilets Titles. We can do one, but we're going to run multiple leagues. So right now, in the Gilded chat, like I said, we have over 220 people in there. We're going to be reaching out to you all first, members of the Title Tribe, members of the Patreon team. We're going to fill 5 minimum. We're going to fill 5 minimum. We're going to start there because we want a strong core, because we want to help out rivals helping us out. So we're going to go to our bravest and our boldest and our best fantasy owners in the Title Tribe. We're going to get these 5 set up. And then from there, we'll see how it goes. I mean, we could set up 20, 25. So if the interest is there, reach out to us, let us know. We'll keep filling them. But I know the floor is 5. All right. So if you want in, reach out to us tonight, tomorrow, let us know. We're going to start filling these things. Justin, why don't we talk about, I know we got a lot to talk about, but we have so much news, man. I do want to mention, shout out to all the Patreons. We're up to 32 or 33 Patreons. We're closing in on like some milestones that are absolutely phenomenal. We've gone up I want to say 128 subscribers in the last 7 days, which is faster growth than we've ever had before. But we want to give back, okay? So to give back, we're going to give away a copy of Madden next week on air to a member of the Patreon team, okay? So you get 1 entry in the giveaway per tier level. So we have 5 tier levels. So if you have 5 tiers, if you're in tier 5, you get 5 entries. We're going to randomize it on air. Then if you win that copy of Madden, we're going to take you out of the giveaway. Then we're going to give away, we shared in the Title Tribe, these New Era, I think it's called Brand 47. They got these awesome NFL hats. They range from $35 to $45. They're kind of classic, phenomenal. So anyone tier 2 or above in the Patreon, they're going to get in that entry as long as they don't win the Madden game. And we're going to give that away as well. So patreon.com/Toilets Titles. If you want to join our Patreon, that gets you in Patreon again, that gets you into Gilded, and also gets you into the Patreon exclusive chat in Gilded, where we're doing all these exclusive things like Beat the Bandito. So can you talk about that?
Oh yeah, Beat the Bandito sounds fun, and not just because we get to beat the Bandito, but Rich has come up with this challenge. It's actually a lot like our fantasy challenge that our playoff fantasy challenge that you were alluding to earlier, where it's kind of King of the Hill style. You get it's a season long challenge. This time, instead of just fantasy, you set whatever roster you want. Just pretend like you're setting a DFS lineup. You get 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and 1 flex. Now, here's the catch. You get the points for those players for that week, but then you cannot choose those players again for the rest of the season. So that means you have to choose a whole new set of 5 the next week, and then the next week, and then the next week. So eventually, you're even using Raiders players because you're that desperate, because you've used all the players. So, and of course, I said that because Rich is watching.
You're really beating the Bandito with that.
That's right. That's right. Got to play into it. So tell your friends about it. Tell your family about it. And grab their phone. Sign them up for it, because this is going to be a very fun event. And I can't remember exactly what the prize is. I know at least at the very
Frankenstank fee, which is $25. You're going to get in Frankenstank for free.
There you go.
So anyone who beats him, I believe, if you finish ahead of Rich, so anybody, so you have to be a Patreon member to do this. Okay. But anybody who beats Rich, who does this, gets $25. So you can get a free entry to Frankenstein by doing that, which is included in your Patreon membership. You just have to sign up. And also the Vampire League that Justin brought up is another way. So we're giving away $25 like left and right. We are like Oprah Winfrey. We got Toilets and Titles t-shirts. Okay. Frankenstein. We still got about 15 to 20 of those available. $35 for non-Patreon members, $25 if you are Patreon. Talking trade, I already mentioned all the other stuff we're doing in Patreon, so I think we about covered it. We got these playable cards. We're going to be selling decks of those, so I know that's for Frankenstein. So I think we touched all the all on Patreon and all the jibs and jabs we needed to get out there. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's show. Tonight we're talking storylines, man. We're talking storylines. We're buying and selling NFL, fantasy football. I'm going to start with what I'm buying. And we just beat the Bandito. All right, Rich, Raiders fan, but I'm going to lift him back up, man. I'm going to lift him up like I think the man Aiden O'Connell is going to do for the Raiders in the near future. I think Aiden O'Connell is the future Raiders quarterback 1. First time I watched him play, I swear to you, with number 4, I didn't even remember that Derek Carr was gone. Like I was kind of doing, I was watching it on shout out to YouTube TV. All right. They're not a sponsor of ours. Maybe one day they will be, but I use them, right? I got NFL ticket now for the first time ever. I'm very excited. So I was watching the Raiders. I was kind of doing some work, whatever. He's got the same style helmet as Derek Carr. He wears number 4. He's making these throws. He's looking calm in the pocket. I was like, holy cow. And then I was like, wait, Derek Carr is gone. That ain't him. It's Aiden O'Connell. Well, guess what? He was a 4th round pick. So far through the preseason, he has a 125 quarterback rating. He's completed 26 of 36 passes, which is 72.2%. He's thrown for 304 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So Aiden O'Connell, to me, future of the organization. What do you think, Justin?
I mean, I like it. He's a Midwest guy. He grew up in Illinois, he played at Purdue right here in Indiana. So, I mean, he's definitely looking sharp. He's looking good. So I don't doubt it at all. And to be able to get him at the draft value that they got him would be phenomenal if he does end up being the long-term franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and then I got another rookie who I'm pretty excited about. And this is somebody we got to see at the Senior Bowl, and we watched a lot at Tulane because Tulane was like the official team of the Toilets of Titles Network last year. That's Tajay Spears. The storyline I'm buying with him is he's an injury away from being a fantasy football league winner. Sign me up. This dude, the question was, we had some knee injury history, and he was super explosive at Tulane. Then we saw him at the Senior Bowl, super explosive. Like he made everyone else looking like they were running with rocks in their shoes. That's how fast he looked compared to everybody else. Well, guess what? On that 33-yard rushing touchdown he had last week, he looked like he was playing at a speed the rest of the field was not at. That explosiveness translated. All right. This kid, shifty, powerful, explosive. Week 2 against the Vikings, 7 carries, 57 yards, and a reception for 3 yards. So what are your thoughts on the Tajay Spears storyline?
I also love the anticipation. If you watch him, he's anticipating where the play is going to go. He was hitting that hole before the hole was even there. Because he knew it was supposed to be there. So phenomenal. Absolutely love the guy.
Do you have any storylines you're buying?
Sure. Yeah, I got. The biggest one I'm buying, and I'm only mentioning this one first because I've been talking about it the entire offseason. The storyline where shortly after the free agency and all of the moving around, the moving parts, and Aaron Rodgers landed in with the Jets, there was a headline that I read that said something about the Jets were only a quarterback away from being true contenders.
So this was an actual storyline.
Yeah.
This was an actual headline. So this is you're on brand right now.
Yep, they were saying then after they got Aaron Rodgers that was their guy, and now I have a fly in my beer. That's great. The
good omen.
Aaron Rodgers, I do believe Aaron Rodgers is going to be that guy that can help make them contenders. And I was going to say again, but it's the Jets. It's been a while. I believe firmly that the Jets will end up being in a divisional round playoff game. I even think that they're going to unseat Buffalo as the top dogs in that division. So Garrett Wilson will be a top 10 wide receiver. Lazard's going to be a top 25. Dalvin Cook will be a top 10 running back, and Breece Hall is a top 25. So I get this is kind of like I'm starting to get into like predictions and stuff.
Right.
But it's kind of a play into that headline that I had read where not only do I see a path where this could happen, I truly honestly think it will.
Man, I like it. It'll be interesting to see how the Dalvin Cook, Breece Hall stuff plays out. But with Breece Hall being young and maybe somebody they want to build around, maybe they do kind of use Dalvin Cook as a 1-year rental. And as long as he produces, keep feeding him the rock and freeing up Breece Hall to be healthy for a playoff stretch. That's not a bad idea. So you talked about Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to talk about a storyline I'm buying into. And that's that the Packers are in good hands. And they're going to take a step forward this season with Jordan Love at the quarterback. Jordan Love, I had him ranked quarterback 14 in fantasy like a month and a half ago before we started to see, him playing on the field. He looks poised in the pocket. He's mobile in the pocket. He's going through his progressions, and he's not force feeding his wide receivers. And he doesn't have to force feed his wide receivers because he has about 5 or 6 young guys who can get it done. Jaden Reed, who they just drafted this year, dude's looked great. He's looked great. Luke Musgrave, I'm excited about. And then you got Christian Watson, Romeo Dubs, who last year got to play with Aaron Rodgers, were taught how to be professionals. Watson's phenomenal at stretching the field. Dubs is consistent, steady Eddie. And Jaden Reed, he reminds me kind of like Pierre Garcon when he was out there in Indianapolis. So I think the Green Bay Packers, the Jordan Love era, I think the Detroit Lions are the team to beat in that division. I think Minnesota's a close second unless they get Jonathan Taylor. I think that pushes them to the top. But I think the Packers will be better than the Bears this year, but their future is ultimately bright if the GM and the organization can continue to draft and put a solid team around this quarterback to put him in a position to actually succeed.
Yeah, I love it, and I like the Pierre Garcon comp because Pierre was one of those guys where you never really heard a whole lot from him until you needed 8 yards, and then he got you 9, and that's what it looks like Reed is going to fill right there too. So, so yeah, great comp.
But Pierre was also tough and physical. Like
Right.
he could take a crossing route. So once he got behind the linebackers and somebody was trailing him, Pierre was gone. He haunted me when he was out there with the Washington Redskins for a little bit. So I think Jaden Reed can do that.
And also on Jordan Love, like I also bumped him up in my rankings, but I bumped him up from like 26th to 19. And I still think that's super low, but I'm leaving it there for now just because of another headline.
Right.
Not exactly a headline I saw, but what I'm seeing on Twitter is people saying that this is just preseason and this is just, what kind of defense is he going against? I'm still seeing people kind of like leery about Jordan Love, but I'm on board with you. Like he's my 19 because I feel like I can get him later.
Right.
So if that makes sense.
That makes sense. All right, I'm going to talk about another thing I'm buying, and this is probably I got 2 other small ones after this, but this is a big one. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is the best rookie wide receiver in the 2023 class. A lot of them look good. Zay looks explosive. Zay looks shifty. Quentin Johnson looks phenomenal, stretching the field vertically. He's had a few drops. There's some concerns, but I think Justin Herbert's going to feed him. I think he's going to be fine. Jordan Addison, I'm looking at clips of him at camp. Dude is always open, phenomenal, smooth. All right, kind of reminds me of like a young Calvin Ridley. Tank Dell, Cedric Tillman, those are both guys that, Tank was at the Senior Bowl. He's looking like a pro. So all of these guys look great. Even Jaden Reed, who I mentioned in Green Bay, Michael Wilson, Jonathan Mingo. I think they're all going to develop. They're all with pretty young quarterbacks. That all being said, there's a lot of talent. Jackson Smith-Njigba has it. Like, that might seem like lazy analysis, but he's looked unguardable. He's not the biggest guy, but he's great with the ball in his hands. He's good after the catch. He's got great hand-eye coordination, great at reaching out for that football. He does that late hands thing like DeAndre Hopkins. He waits till the last second because I saw him against Eric Scott the other day playing against the Dallas Cowboys. Eric Scott got beat, but he recovered. It was in Jackson Smith-Njigba's pocket. Jackson Smith-Njigba on the deep crossing route waited to the last second to extend his hands to catch that football because the guy was in his pocket and he was being smart. Like, I'm not going to show you where the football's coming. So my bet is on Jackson Smith-Njigba being the lead of a very, very good 2023 wide receiver class.
Hey, speaking of really good wide receivers, my next buy is the Dallas Cowboys. So the Dallas Cowboys with their new look offense, again, was an actual headline. Dallas Cowboys and a new look offense. So this was from about a month and a half ago, whenever, I don't know if you remember, well, I'm sure you remember, but a lot of the viewers may not necessarily remember when Mike McCarthy and that coaching staff were talking about how they're going to be a run first offense. They're going to run. Maybe even
Texas Coast. They were calling it the Texas Coast offense instead of the West Coast.
So Mike McCarthy is now calling the plays in Dallas. The Cowboys might be saying that they're going to be a run first offense, but regardless, I think that they will find a way to finally let Dak eat, because they went out of the way to sign the speedy Brandon Cooks, and Brandon Cooks is looking dynamite right now in preseason and in camp.
Great use of words there, dynamite. I like it.
Yeah, he's explosive. You got to, or at least right now he is. Like, where was this all these years? Like, and he's always been a solid wide receiver too. That's the thing. When he's used as a wide receiver too, he's always been really good, 1,000-yard seasons, right? So now he's right where he's comfortable in that role. So they let Zeke go, which paves the way for a really fast Tony Pollard, right? Deuce Vaughn. I know Deuce Vaughn is going to be my first sell for tonight as well, but but looking past that for right now, you got Deuce Vaughn, who's super fast. You got Cavante Turpin with special teams along with Deuce Vaughn. And then obviously Jalen Tolbert and CeeDee Lamb aren't exactly slow themselves. Like, they have so much speed on this team that Dak's going to be able to utilize that and show that he actually is a really good quarterback in the NFL and finally prove people that want to still be naysayers wrong.
Yeah, and I also like, obviously Jake Ferguson, we mentioned him last year a lot. And if you listened to us last year and you bought Jake Ferguson in Dynasty, you're going to be rewarded at least early on in the season, because I think it's going to take a while for Luke Schoonmaker to get going. But they also have a guy like Peyton Hendershot, who's not their blocking tight end. He's kind of lines up wide and he stretches the field. So they have a lot of weapons. So I'm excited. I think they'll run. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be play action, getting Dak in comfortable spots where he can either read the first or second option, dump it off, and this offense is going to move. But you were talking about running the ball. You think the Cowboys aren't necessarily going to go too high into running the ball. I don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to go too high into running the ball, but I do. They're going to go highly into a dual running back system. I think Tank Bigsby will hurt Travis Etienne in fantasy. Okay. I don't think he takes the job from Travis Etienne, but I think he is good enough that Doug Peterson's going to recognize it, and he's going to split the carries, and he's going to play the hot hand. Maybe it'll be 60-40. Maybe it'll be 65-35. But I think Doug Peterson isn't playing fantasy football. He's trying to win games. All right, he wants to keep both these guys healthy so that when they get into the playoffs and when you need to slow the game down, he's got a stable of guys who can play. Tank Bigsby, I think he's very good. I think Travis Etienne is close to being great, but I don't think he's quite there. And I think Tank Bigsby is close to being very good. So I think he's a step below Etienne. But as the game gets going, you bring this guy off the bench, he's going to come in fresh. So far, he has 22 attempts in preseason, 122 yards, 5.5 yards per carry. So if you're drafting Travis Etienne high, you better hope for a lot of PPR action, because this guy's going to come into some of his touches and some of his red zone work.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. And so I already mentioned my first sell.
Yeah.
But before I get into my first sell, I noticed you have some more buys here. Looks like you made up some time. Do you want to knock out the rest of your buys?
Yeah, so I'm gonna quickly Trey Palmer. I think he'll crack the starting lineup for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I might be buying too much into training camp hype, but I saw him beat Sauce Gardner one-on-one. I saw him catch touchdowns, I believe, in both their preseason games, and I know that Russell Gage is on the IR now. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You're going to see Trey Palmer from Nebraska crack that starting lineup. This is an IDP bonus, both of these, and I'm buying. Sidney Brown, Philadelphia Eagles. We got to see him at the Senior Bowl. Shout out to Mobile. All right, shout out to Brian Bosarge and that crew. Dude, I think he's got 20 tackles through 2 preseason games. He plays every snap like it's his last snap. Like, he flies. He's got so much range. I saw somebody on Twitter say he plays like his hair's on fire. I'm buying it. Today against the Indianapolis Colts, your Indianapolis Colts, he got first-team reps, and supposedly he walloped Mo Alley Cox. They're saying it was a play over the middle where it would have been a penalty in a game, but Sidney Brown is playing like football is the end-all, be-all for him, and guys like that at that position, I'm all in on it. And it hates me to say it because I'm a Cowboys fan, but then Boye Mafe, Seattle Seahawks, through 2 preseason games, I got to see him in Dallas. He was in Cooper Rush's face every single drop back. Then I go back and watch the reps when they played against Minnesota. It seemed like the same thing. This guy, I think Boye Mafe cracks 10 sacks this season. He was getting his hands up, batting balls down. So if you're playing IDP, if both these guys are free agents and available, I'm picking them both up and I am buying.
I like it. And your buying could be its own article on toylisttitles.com, because you just kept going with it. Like, I would check the show notes, like 2 hours later, you'd have another one. 2 hours later, you'd have another one.
Well, who are you selling? Who are we selling?
So selling, I guess I'm more the negative one right now because I have more sells than I do buys. But I'm selling the Deuce Vaughn hype, the more recent hype. So here's the thing about Deuce Vaughn. I noticed this only happened after the preseason game and after the camp where he's showing how fast he is, and it is a great feel good story, guys. I get it. I'm rooting for the guy too. but quit drafting him in fantasy. I'm starting to notice those 15, 16 round picks. You guys are taking Deuce Vaughn. He cannot be the guy. He's 5'5", 176 pounds. If something happens to Pollard, he's not going to step in and get you all those carries. He's not built that way. He's not designed that way, and that's not what the Cowboys need him to do, right? So that he's there to fulfill a certain role, and he's going to fulfill that role, but that role is not going to help you in fantasy. So I'm selling on the little bit of hype that's coming up about Deuce Vaughn suddenly getting drafted in drafts.
I'd draft Deuce Vaughn in best ball. I'd take him as a late round guy because Deuce Vaughn, I've said this on the Cowboys show, which we do every Sunday. Now about them Cowboys, I have Kyle Yeomans from DallasCowboys.com coming on this Sunday. Aisha Morrison from DallasCowboys.com was on last weekend. Jess Neverez the weekend before. So we're bringing in some pretty big guests. Humble flex there. But I mentioned, with Deuce Vaughn reminds me of when a baseball team is making a late season push and they're grinding it out, veterans, and they got somebody in the minor leagues who's just got nothing to lose, slugging away. They bring him up and he brings excitement. Now everybody in the dugout that's over 32, 33 years old, they're all acting like 25-year-olds because they're kind of feeling that youthful energy. Deuce Vaughn, I think, is going to bring that energy to this offense. I don't think he's going to get on the field for over 30% of the snaps, if that. I think that's still a high number. But when he comes out there, it's going to be exciting to watch. And every now and then, the dude's going to find himself in the end zone. He's going to find himself making a big play. So I see what you're saying. I wouldn't draft him unless it's late, unless it's Dynasty, or unless it's best ball.
Fair enough. Who are you selling on, or what storyline?
I'm selling that Trey Lance and Zach Wilson are busts. And that's, you can take it or leave it. Everyone knows I can't give up on Trey Lance. I'm sorry. I'd still, I need to see him healthy for a season. I need to see him because he didn't play too much at North Dakota State, man. They played the 1 year, then COVID hit. Then he's rookie for a year. And then he gets hurt his second year when it's supposed to be his job. And I feel like he still needs to be coached. And then Zach Wilson, I'm excited to watch him sit behind a guy like Aaron Rodgers for a year and see what he can do next year. They might be busts, but I'm just selling that they are. I'm not fully sold on them being busts yet.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm still picking up Baker Mayfield late in rounds because I can't give him up. So, I mean, I get it on the Trey Lance. Like, I understand why you're still on that boat. With the Zach Wilson, he working behind Aaron Rodgers, he could pick up more, he could learn more, whatever. Hopefully he can learn how to mature more. And it seems like Aaron Rodgers seems to get less and less mature over the years. So I don't know about the maturity level, but that's going to come with age and experience. And I'm sure he was humbled a bit with what happened with his teammates last year. So
yeah,
it's definitely possible.
Yes.
My next sell is that the Ravens are going to pass the ball more in 2023. No, they ain't, guys. They ain't. They just ain't. All right. So in 2022, they only passed the ball 49.82% at the time or percent of their plays. That was the third least in the league, bottom 10 in 2021. They had 31.2 rushing attempts per game last year, which was the sixth most in the league and the third most in 2021. So far this preseason, they've had 31 passes to 28 rushes against Philly. That was 52.5% passing plays. And then 22 passes and 27 rushes against Washington, 44.9% passing plays for a preseason average of 49% pass plays, which would have been equal to dead last in the league last year. Now, I know what you're saying. It's preseason. They're not going to show their plays. It depends on who's on the field, yada, yada. But that's the same for everybody. And across the league, I didn't find a passing percentage that was lower than 49% over these first two preseason games. And granted, I only checked 5 or 6 other teams that were really low in passing percentage last year too, and they even passed the ball more. I feel like the preseason, the coaches get an opportunity to try to run plays that they're going to run during the regular season as well. And at the end of the day, a Raven will always show their feathers, and they're going to continue to run the ball. This is a running offense with a rushing quarterback. it doesn't matter. I get they have way more talent at wide receiver. That doesn't mean that they're going to be able to utilize them like they
Right.
really want to.
Right.
So, guys, temper your expectations on these wide receivers.
Right. I see Jared's in here. He mentioned that their offensive coordinator likes to pass, and Monken does like to pass, but kind of like you mentioned, a good coach, regardless of his philosophy, changes and adjusts to his players. So it all comes down to what Lamar Jackson wants to do, especially when they're paying Lamar Jackson. You know, the new OC might want to throw the ball a lot, but Lamar Jackson, he's going to be the one listening to him in the headphones, and he's going to have the check downs and the check outs, and he's going to be able to make his adjustments at the line of scrimmage. What worried me about Lamar Jackson through the preseason. So, I'm watching a lot of these training camp practices, and I'm seeing Zay Flowers, and I'm seeing Odell Beckham Jr., and I'm seeing Mark Andrews get deep vertically. Opportunities for big plays, big touchdowns. And I don't know if he's just not fully ripping it because it's practice, but I saw a lot of underthrows. So it's just a little concerning. It could go, you could look at it both ways. The wide receivers are getting open. They're in good shape, but I'd like to see him putting the ball in a position where these wide receivers can catch it and finish, but guys like Zay Flowers, guys like Odell Beckham Jr., these are guys that can catch the ball 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and take it 65 yards, 70 yards. So you're going to see a few times that's going to happen. And so it'll be interesting to see. The Ravens are kind of a mystery because J.K. Dobbins, what is J.K. Dobbins? Kind of him and like even DeAndre Swift. They're both like, to me, two guys that are super talented, but never really have been given, due to some injuries and due to stuff going on with their coaching. Like J.K. Dobbins wants to get paid. He's not showing up to practice. Now he's back. Like they're two guys that came out with such promise. I'd like to see both of them given a full running back one workload for a season. I want to find out this year who and what is J.K. Dobbins, but I don't know if we are going to find that out. I don't know if the Baltimore Ravens, Coach Monken, head coach, Harbaugh, are going to give him the opportunity to do that. But I'm going to go on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Also, Jared, he typed in 55-45. If they do that, that's barely more than what they had 2 years ago when they were still in the bottom 10 in the league. So you very well might be right about that. You probably are right, but that's still not very much passing compared to the rest of the league.
One of the last things I'm selling is that Dalton Kincaid. So not Dalton Kincaid. I'm selling that rookie tight ends can't be productive year one. We haven't seen it very often, but I think Dalton Kincaid is going to buck that trend. But this is kind of cheating because even though he was used a lot in line, which is your last preseason game, which is concerning to people who drafted him high, seeing him in that way. I think they plan to play him in the slot like they always have, but they're giving him experience in preseason games doing the work that they feel he needs to refine and get better at. But they're going to have Dawson Knox and they're going to have Dalton Kincaid out wide. And I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be produced. Dalton Kincaid, top 10 tight end this year in fantasy. Book it. All right. I'm selling that tight ends can't produce year one. And maybe even Sam Laporta, man. Sam Laporta might be a top 12 tight end. We might have two tight end one from this rookie class.
So my last sell, it's another headline that I saw from this one was from the milehighreport.com, and it was about Sean Payton. It said that Sean Payton will rejuvenate the Broncos offense. So here's the thing about Sean Payton. Since he's been there, he's had his hands in nearly every single aspect of the Broncos organization. Yet somehow they still did very little to help improve that offense, in my opinion. They did make some big moves on defense, but in that division against Mahomes and Herbert, even if you do improve the defense enough to even like put a little speed bump there in front of them, you got to be able to score on offense to keep up with them. So, so far this preseason and from all accounts that I've heard from camp, to me, this Broncos offense still looks very bland and boring. I don't think that they've made anything, any kind of moves that seem to me like they're going to be exciting to watch or fun to watch. Maybe some improvement by their wide receivers being another year in the system, maybe with Javonte Williams being healthy, but even he did not look great by any means. Like he looked decent for a guy that missed a year of football. So I'm still very worried about this offense, whether Sean Payton's there or not.
and Jared might still be in this chat. And one of the exciting things they do have going on for Denver right now, like I'm with you with that offense, with Russell Wilson, with Cortland Sutton, with Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy, we could put him on the Jekyll Hyde card for Frankenstein because you just don't know what you're getting from him. But Marvin Mims, word out of Denver, Marvin Mims looks like the real deal. In 2 or 3 years, we might be talking about Marvin Mims as the true one in Denver. Jeudy might be gone. Sutton might be gone. We know Tim Patrick, he's getting injured and getting up there in age. So that is the one good thing I think they have coming out of that offense.
Don't get me wrong. I do think that Sean Payton's making moves. I do think that they're going to be improved, especially with Drew Sanders and Riley Moss. Like I think they had good draft picks that are going to help make a difference. It's just for fantasy purposes. This is a fantasy show, and just the headlines of him making that much of a difference. It's going to be a slow process.
Yeah. All right. Well, that does it for all the buys and sells. I do want to sell you all on something. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/titles. We have 5 tiers. Tier 1 is $1.50. And like we mentioned earlier in the show, we are doing tons of giveaways. Next week, we're giving away a copy of Madden to anybody in the Patreon team. Okay. You get 1 entry per tier level. So tier 1 to tier 5, we're going to give it away next Tuesday. And then if you do not win that, you're going to be re-entered. Anyone tier 2 or above, which is tier 2 is I think like $3 a month, it's going to be entered for a chance to win a 47. I think that's the name of the brand hat. We'll let you choose. We'll send it to you. We'll purchase it, send it directly to your house. Get in our Gilded channel. All right. We got mock drafts, trade advice, start sits. We got over 220 people in there. And what's awesome is what I've always kind of dreamed, which just sounds silly, but what I've always wanted for this community is to be able to wake up or put my phone down for a few hours and tune in and catch up on something. Like the Toilets and Titles team isn't driving this conversation. The Title Tribe is driving the conversation, and we're just chiming in. So this thing is like, it's got a mind of its own, and it's just taking off. So take off with us. Join the Title Tribe. Take off with us. Subscribes are going up. Views are going up, downloads are going up, watch hours are going up, all at the right time. And you know why? I don't want to sell us too much, but it's going up because we do a little bit of everything and we put our heart into it and we enjoy it and we enjoy doing it with you, like the community. Like that's it, man. I have so many DMs of people that are listening to the show. Like we take the time out. Like we are you. We are one of you. You are one of us. Like there's no separation between us and you. And that's one of the best things about this team. So join up. So Justin, before we wrap this up, do you have anything to say?
Nope. That was very well said. I hat off to you.
All right. I appreciate it. Everybody. We appreciate you. We will catch you all later on. Tune into On the Clock tomorrow. The great Dane Brugler of The Athletic is coming on the clock. And me and we got some questions for him. So check it out tomorrow. We catch you all later on. Take care.